you guys, the UAW, you saved the automobile industry back in 2008 and before. Made a lot of sacrifices, gave up a lot, and the companies were in trouble. But now they're doing incredibly well. And guess what? You should be doing incredibly well too.
The UAW strike on the surface seems like your typical battle between labor and management, a tale as old as time. Ford, GM, and Stellantis earned over $44 billion in income during 2022, and the UAW feels its members deserve a larger piece of that pie. Maybe they do, but this video isn't about worker wages and if they should be higher or lower. I want to speak about a concern of how the plight of the legacy automotive EV transition will become an election talking point, or even worse, a campaign promise. Just today, President Biden appeared on the picket line to join the UAW workers actively striking against their automotive employers. A source close to Sean Fain and the president told reporters that there will be, quote, a just transition, end quote, in regards to the electric vehicle transition in the legacy OEM companies. That wasn't the only takeaway from the president. He also added he agreed they should get the pay increase they need, which we would assume is the full 40% raise they've been asking for. Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, has gone on the record to say these UAW demands could spell the end of their EV plans and even the end of the entire company. His words exactly are, union demands would force Ford to scrap its investments in electric vehicles. We want to actually have a conversation about a sustainable future, not one that forces us to choose between going out of business and rewarding our workers. And for Ford going bankrupt, here's a recent interview.
If we signed up for the UAW's request, instead of making money and distributing $75,000 in profit sharing in the last 10 years, we would have lost $15 billion and gone bankrupt by now. The average pay would be nearly $300,000 fully fringed for a 4-day work week. There is no way.
Per UAW employee.
GM CEO Mary Barra echoes Farley's concerns while speaking to CBS Mornings.
Very important.
One of your competitors said the deal that the UAW wants would push them into bankruptcy. Can GM be successful if you met all their demands?
No. The demands, which has been said, and we said for the life of the contract, the initial demands were over $100 billion. We still have a ways to go with the offer they put on the table last night.
It seems like the CEOs are trying to appeal to you, the public, and generate positive sentiment for those who want a cleaner environment and who are already owners of electric vehicles, as the billions of dollars that have been eating into their free cash flow as investments are now in jeopardy. But in reality, these crafted quotes are not meant for you or for me, they're meant for the political elite, those who are representing districts where electric vehicles are manufactured and where battery production facilities are being planned for development. And more importantly, these comments are directed to the President of the United States. Biden's agenda is at risk if domestic OEM auto manufacturers are not viable business concerns. Try to reconcile what's happening here. President Biden has joined the picket line to show his support for the striking UAW workers. That in itself is not too surprising. The UAW and many of its membership have been longtime Democrat voters. The party has always been pro-union, so all of this makes sense. But then you try to balance his support for the auto workers with the legislation in the Inflation Reduction Act, a law signed a year ago offering subsidies in the form of grants and cheap loans to build out electric vehicle and battery manufacturing and recycling infrastructure in the United States. Where the unions might take issue with this is that many of the facilities being constructed for the purpose of battery or EV manufacturing are going to right-to-work states. It's actually the vast majority of the spending so far. Also, auto manufacturers are using this opportunity to shift their factories to be more automated, threatening the jobs of thousands of their employees and all of their union dues. Ford, for one, has created 11,000 jobs in plants that are being built in Kentucky and Tennessee, and GM did the same. Both face calls for more union representation in their EV ventures, and as the unionization takes hold in their budding EV businesses, costs only go up further. And remember, this is a money-losing business to the tune of billions of dollars, and that is with the financial support of Biden's government already. Ford pushes the issue further in what some say is a veiled threat to the UAW. Jim Farley froze plans to build a $3.5 billion battery plant. They say it's due to some cloudy understanding if the batteries they'd manufacture would be eligible for grants, but it just happened a day before President Biden appeared on the picket lines with the UAW. So as Biden weighs his agenda being financially viable or not, with the traditional support of unions as a staunch Democrat, former President Donald Trump enters the fray. Though the Republican Party hasn't necessarily been a huge fan of the UAW, the individual members themselves have voted for the party and Trump in large numbers before, and President Trump aims to turn the state of Michigan into a battleground for the 2024 election. Not to mention, he'll be joining the picket line as well, in some capacity on Wednesday of this week, and the lead up to this appearance, he has unleashed an attack upon the electric vehicle transition. He sees it as an opportunity to garner support from the critical blue-collar worker base whose jobs are on the chopping block if the country adopts EVs en masse. In his own words, Trump over the weekend said, Crooked Joe sold them down a river with his ridiculous all-electric car hoax. Within 3 years, all of these cars will be made in China. If the UAW leadership doesn't endorse me, and if I don't win the election, the auto workers are toast, with our great truckers to follow. Caught in the middle is Tesla. No one knows what President Biden means by a just transition, and no one can even attempt to understand how President Trump could save the auto workers' jobs if the market demands a product that would put those jobs at risk. What we do know is that Elon is not a fan of either of these two, and you could say that presidents aren't very fond of Elon in return. In Walter Isaacson's biography of him, Elon made statements of the sitting president saying, "When he was vice president, I went to lunch with him in San Francisco, where he droned on for over an hour and was boring as hell, like one of those dolls where you pull a string and it just says the same mindless phrases over and over." And as for former President Trump, Elon had thoughts about their interactions as well. I quote the book, "If you just think of Trump as sort of a con man performance, then his behavior sort of makes sense." With both statements now being made public with the release of the biography, how does this affect Tesla, SpaceX, and Elon's standing with these potential winners of the 2024 presidential election? We've already seen it. What I can only describe as a coordinated effort from the government agencies to harass Elon and his companies. And the outcome of the election can affect the existing IRA legislation. If Trump were to win, would he do everything in his power to take away EV grants and credits for businesses and individuals alike? If Biden earns a second term, does the legal scrutiny of Elon's dealings ramp up? For shareholders, we're in for a wild ride. For Elon, this is what he lives for.